If you retire with less than $1 million, you could be broke in 5 years. That's not fear-mongering. That's the math in 2026 America. Groceries are up 25% in 3 years. Rent is up 35%. Healthcare? Forget it. Fidelity says the average couple needs $315,000 just for medical bills in retirement. And the average Social Security check, $1,900 a month, barely enough to cover rent in a second-rate zip code. So how much is really enough to retire comfortably in this economy? I'm going to break it down. No fluff, no theory, just cold, hard numbers. And what actually works if you're planning to stop working and still live with dignity. This will change how you see retirement forever. Let's not sugarcoat this. The old idea that $1 million is your golden ticket to a worry-free retirement. That myth's about 20 years outdated. You've probably heard the number thrown around, if I just had $1 million saved up, I'd be set. But let's break that down with 2026 math, not 1999 math. The average American household spends about $5,000 a month just on basic living expenses. That's $60,000 a year. If you're aiming to retire at 65 and live into your mid-80s, which, statistically, you will, that's at least 20 years of retirement. $60,000 times 20 is $1.2 million. And that doesn't even factor in inflation, emergencies, long-term care, or rising medical costs. And inflation, by the way, is the sneaky killer. Even a tame 3% yearly increase erodes over 40% of your purchasing power over 2 decades. So that $5 gallon of milk, it'll be $9 before you're 80. Your million turns into a glorified $500,000 in real-world value if you're not careful. And if you're still carrying a mortgage or any kind of debt, forget about it. That million's going to feel like pocket change. A recent study from Northwestern Mutual found that the average American thinks they'll need $1.46 million to retire comfortably. But the reality? Most folks retire with less than $100,000 in total savings. And even worse, 38% of retirees have nothing saved at all. That's not just a gap, that's a canyon. The truth is, retiring comfortably in the U.S. doesn't have a one-size-fits-all price tag, but $1 million isn't what it used to be. And if that's your only goalpost, you might want to slide it back about 10 yards and reassess. Because once you get hit with a few surprise dental implants, car repairs, or a Medicare premium hike, that number will shrink faster than a wool sweater in a hot dryer. Trust me, monthly income is king and Social Security ain't the throne. It used to be. Let me tell you something that's going to sound harsh, but is 100% true. It's not about how much you saved. It's about what you can spend without going broke. It's all about cash flow. I've seen folks sitting on a $700,000 nest egg that live like they're broke, and others with less than $100,000 living just fine. Why? Because the monthly income stream is where the comfort comes from. And for most Americans, that stream starts and ends with Social Security, which, let's face it, is looking more like a leaky faucet these days than a reliable pipeline. In 2024, the average monthly Social Security check is just over $1,900. That's $22,800 a year. And here's the kicker. The average monthly rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the U.S. right now is $1,500. That's $18,000 a year gone before you even buy groceries or refill your prescriptions. Oh, and let's not forget, Medicare doesn't cover everything. If you want to add dental, vision, or long-term care, you're looking at supplemental plans, out-of-pocket copays, and other fun surprises. So when people say, "I'll just live on Social Security," I always want to ask them, where? In a van? I'm not being snarky. I'm being real. If you don't have at least two reliable income streams in retirement, say, Social Security plus a pension, or Social Security plus dividends from investments, you're going to be stressed. Budgeting every trip to the grocery store, and second-guessing every time the grandkids want ice cream. And let me tell you something you probably haven't heard. Even if you own your home outright, your property taxes and insurance premiums can easily eat up $6,000 a year in many states. You can't budget for retirement on Social Security alone, not anymore. Comfort comes from consistency, and consistency comes from knowing what's coming in every month without having to cash out your 401k or sell the family china. The healthcare time bomb will explode. It's just a matter of when. Now this is the one nobody wants to think about until it's too late. Healthcare. And I'm not just talking about insurance. I'm talking about the full package, the premiums, the out-of-pocket costs, the long-term care, the prescriptions, the dental work, the eyeglasses, and yes, even the hearing aids. Because the truth is, even if you're healthy at 65, the chances of needing significant medical care over the next 20 years are sky high. According to Fidelity's latest retiree healthcare cost estimate, 2025 data, an average retired couple aged 65 will need around $315,000 just to cover healthcare expenses throughout retirement, and that's with Medicare. Let that sink in. That's more than the median home price in half the U.S. states. And here's something most folks don't realize. Medicare doesn't cover long-term care. So if you need assisted living or in-home help because of dementia, mobility issues, or a major surgery, you're on your own unless you've got long-term care insurance, which most people don't have, or enough cash to pay $5,000 to $10,000 a month for private care. And that's not a hypothetical. Over 70% of Americans over 65 will need long-term care at some point. 70%? Dental care? Also not covered. The average cost of a dental implant is over $4,000. One bad tooth, and there goes your vacation fund. Now sure, you can try to age in place, but you better hope your house has 0 stairs, a walk-in shower, and a support network nearby. Or you'll be calling an Uber just to get your groceries. Healthcare isn't just a line item. It's the wild card in retirement. And if you're not setting aside at least $500 a month in your plan for future medical needs, you're playing with fire. Because when the bill comes, and it won't care how well you budgeted for Netflix. Inflation is a lifelong thief that never retires. What people don't talk about enough, and I mean really don't want to talk about, is how inflation will absolutely kneecap your retirement dreams if you're not actively preparing for it. Inflation is the invisible pickpocket that quietly steals from you year after year, and you barely notice until it's too late. Think about this. If you retired in 2004 with $3,000 a month in income, that felt comfortable. Fast forward to 2024. That same $3,000 is worth less than $2,000 in today's dollars. And looking ahead to 2044, at a modest 3% inflation rate, $3,000 will be worth about $1,600. That's the retirement reality nobody shows on the brochures. Now, 2021 to 2023 taught us a brutal lesson. Eggs doubled in price. Rent soared, and energy costs made people choose between heating their homes or buying medication. If you think that was a fluke, you're not reading the signs. The Federal Reserve is juggling interest rates like a circus act, and while inflation is cooling, it's still running above average, and once you retire, you don't get a raise. Your Social Security gets a cost of living adjustment, COLA, sure, but that COLA is based on the CPIW index, which often understates the real-world inflation retirees face, especially in healthcare and housing. So, while you're getting a 3% bump, your grocery bill goes up 7%, and your homeowner's insurance doubles. Fun, right? If you don't have some of your money working, whether it's in I-bonds, Treasury inflation-protected securities, Type ES, rental income, or just keeping pace with cost of living through smart investments, then your retirement plan is like a melting ice cube. Every year, a little less left. That's why how much is enough isn't a fixed number. It's a moving target, and inflation is the one pushing it further away every single year. Location alone can make or break your retirement budget. Now, here's a detail almost nobody spends enough time thinking about. Where you retire will have more impact on your comfort than just about any financial product you buy. I mean that. You could do everything right, save every penny, pay off the house, get your Social Security, and still end up in a tight spot if you retire in the wrong zip code. You know what the average property tax bill is in New Jersey? Over $9,500 a year. That's almost $800 a month just to exist in your home. And don't even get me started on places like California, where between state taxes, home insurance, earthquake insurance, wildfire prep, and high utility costs, it's like your wallet's being chewed apart by termites. Meanwhile, states like Florida and Texas have no state income tax, but their hidden costs come in other forms: skyrocketing insurance premiums, homeowners associations, and the cost of storm prep that can sneak up on you. The difference between retiring in a high-cost state and a low-cost one can be 6 figures over 20 years. Seriously. So when folks ask me, how much do I need to retire? I say, well, tell me your zip code and I'll give you a very different number. Even in the same state, urban versus rural life is a whole different ball game. A cup of coffee in San Francisco might cost you $6, but in rural Tennessee, that same cup might still be $1.50 and come with a smile and free refills. Now, multiply those price differences across every category: gas, groceries, healthcare, housing. That's thousands of dollars in either direction every single year. So, if you're aiming to stretch your savings and actually enjoy retirement instead of nickel and diming yourself to death, you have to be strategic about location. Don't assume that where you've always lived is where you should stay. Sometimes the smartest financial move isn't a new investment, it's a new zip code. Retirement, without a backup plan, is a ticking time bomb. Let's talk about something almost no one wants to think about until it smacks them in the face. What's your backup plan? Because here's the ugly truth. Retirement is full of surprises, and not the good kind. I'm talking about the hot water heater that dies in January, the roof leak that turns into a full-blown remodel, or the grown kid who moves back in with no job and 2 dogs. You think I'm exaggerating? A bank rate survey in 2025 showed that 43% of retirees faced a major financial emergency within the first 5 years of retirement. And here's the kicker. Most didn't have any emergency savings left outside of their retirement accounts. That's dangerous. If the only place you have to pull money from is your IRA or 401k, you're not just draining cash, you're messing with future compounding, possibly paying taxes, and shrinking the pot that's supposed to last 2 decades. Retirement needs a plan B, a plan C, and maybe even a plan D. What if your spouse gets sick? What if you get scammed? Elder financial fraud is up 65% since 2020, and it's not going away. What if your car gives up the ghost and suddenly you're staring down a $30,000 replacement bill? One car repair and boom, your travel fund's gone. If you don't have a cushion, a safety valve, a just-in-case stash, retirement turns into a financial minefield. You need at least 6 to 12 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account, not invested, not tied up, just sitting there earning interest and ready to deploy. Think of it as a pressure release valve, because without it, the first unexpected bill doesn't just throw off your month, it throws off your whole strategy. And it happens more often than you think. You don't want to be 74 years old Googling, "Can I go back to work after Social Security starts?" You want a buffer, because retirement without backup is just a disaster waiting for a headline. Your real expenses will be higher than you think, and they always are. Here's the part that gets people in trouble every single time. You will underestimate your spending. I don't care how many spreadsheets you've made, how many budget apps you downloaded, or how frugal you are. Retirement expenses have a way of sneaking up on you, like a slow drip that eventually floods the basement. And here's why: it's not the bills you know that hurt you. It's the ones you forgot, ignored, or just never thought about. Like dental work. Most retirees are shocked to discover Medicare doesn't cover basic dental. You need a crown? That's $1,200 out of pocket. Root canal? Add another grand? Then you've got rising prescription costs. Yes, you'll likely be on Medicare Part D, but the coverage gap, the infamous donut hole, is real. You could be paying hundreds each year just to stay on your meds. Home repairs, car maintenance, birthday gifts, pet care, heating oil, HOA dues, new glasses, new phone, surprise taxes. It adds up. The Employee Benefit Research Institute found that retirees consistently spend 20% more in their first 5 years of retirement than they expected. That's not a miscalculation, that's a warning. And don't think cutting back on luxuries is a solution. Life still happens. Your body will need tune-ups, your car will need tires, and no matter how tight the budget, you will want to enjoy a little life. Take a trip, visit the grandkids, celebrate an anniversary. That's not frivolous. That's human. If you budget your retirement based on a bare-bones spreadsheet with no breathing room, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, or worse, panic. My advice? Whatever you think your monthly expenses will be, add 25%. Not for emergencies, just for reality. Because comfort in retirement doesn't mean cutting to the bone. It means having enough, so you don't have to flinch every time the mailbox drops off a new bill. And the only way to do that is to over-prepare. Because life in retirement, it costs more than you think. Always has. Always will. You better be ready to outlive your money because longevity is exploding. Now here's the paradox. Most folks still don't wrap their heads around. The better your health is, the more money you're going to need. I know that sounds backward, but stick with me. In 1970, if you hit 65, you were lucky to see 75, but it's 2026 now, and the average 65-year-old is expected to live well into their 80s, and if you're in good health, there's a 50% chance you'll live to 90. For married couples, there's an almost 1 in 4 chance that one of you will live past 95. That means retirement might not last 10 or 15 years. It could last 30. That's 3 decades of needing money, shelter, food, prescriptions, dental care, heating, gifts for grandkids, and the occasional emergency surgery. You don't just need a nest egg. You need a financial engine that keeps humming along well into your golden years. This is why the old 4% rule is falling apart. In the 1990s, financial advisors told you to withdraw 4% per year and you'd be fine. But interest rates were higher back then, inflation was tame, and lifespans were shorter. Now, you withdraw 4% and live 30 years. You will run out of money unless your investments are doing overtime. The modern advice is closer to 3%, maybe even 2.8% if you're ultra-conservative. That means if you want $40,000 a year from your portfolio, you're going to need $1.3 to $1.5 million saved up, not including Social Security. And let's not forget, longevity doesn't just mean more years. It means more uncertain years. Cognitive decline, home assistance, medical surprises. Every extra year is a blessing, but it's also a cost multiplier. So if you're planning for 15 years of retirement and living 28, you better hope your math teacher didn't lie to you in high school. In this game, running out of time is mercy. Running out of money is misery. Comfort isn't a dollar amount. It's control over your life. Most people don't actually want to be rich in retirement. They just want control. They want to wake up without dread. They want to go to the grocery store and not feel their stomach twist when they swipe the card. They want to say yes to dinner with friends without checking their bank app 5 times. Comfort isn't about yachts or fine dining. It's about knowing you can handle life without panic. And that comes from financial flexibility, not some magic number in your IRA. A study by Transamerica found that retirees who reported feeling financially comfortable didn't always have massive portfolios, but they had one thing in common: predictable cash flow and low fixed expenses. In other words, they weren't swimming in millions, but their costs were low, their debts were zero, and their income covered what mattered. That's the formula. Freedom to choose. If your house is paid off, your car is reliable, and you've got income coming in from multiple sources: Social Security, a pension, rental property, annuities, part-time work, you don't need $5 million. You need a system that works even when the stock market doesn't. And let's be real, the market is volatile. You do not want to be 72 years old with 80% of your savings riding on the Dow Jones, not having a bad week. Control means you've got cash reserves. It means your insurance is dialed in. It means your will is written Your accounts are in order, and you don't lie awake wondering if your spouse could handle things if you were gone tomorrow. Comfort is knowing you're not one cracked tooth or blown transmission away from financial panic. It's not a dollar, it's dignity. And you can't measure that in a brokerage account. You feel it when the power bill comes and you're still smiling. The real secret, simplicity, buys peace, not money. Here it is, the big one. The real answer to how much is enough to retire comfortably isn't a spreadsheet. It's not a calculator. It's not some fire movement formula or TikTok finance hack. The real answer is this: simplicity. The fewer things you owe, the fewer things you need, the fewer things you chase, the more comfortable your retirement becomes. I've talked to folks with $3 million saved and more anxiety than a rookie gambler. I've also seen people with under $200,000 who wake up every day with a smile and a garden to tend. What's the difference? The millionaires built a retirement they couldn't maintain. The modest ones built one they could understand and enjoy. The average retiree spends 40% of their income on housing. Want to feel rich? Own your home outright. Most spend $500 to $1,000 a month on transportation. Want to feel secure? Drive a car you own and can afford to fix. Most people burn through savings faster than they expected, not because they're extravagant, but because their lifestyle had too many moving parts, too many bills, too many subscriptions, too many needs that weren't really needs. If you want real peace in retirement, here's the trick. Shrink your overhead. Live where it's cheaper. Ditch the stuff you don't need. Trade the stress for space. The average American home has over 300,000 items in it, and half of them collect dust. The more complex your life is, the more it costs. The more it costs, the more you have to earn. The more you have to earn, the less you really retire. So, the real secret, downsize before life forces you to. Learn to love enough. Because the fewer moving parts you have in retirement, the more time, freedom, and peace of mind you'll actually have. And no amount of money can buy that, not if your life is still tangled up in clutter, obligations, or financial nonsense. In the end, comfort isn't built with numbers. It's built with intentional living. Retirement isn't about how much you save. It's about how long it lasts. So, if this gave you something to think about, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear the truth, and subscribe for more real talk. Because the clock's ticking, and comfort doesn't come by accident.